Hello guys, we're back. We have a first taste of Lost Caverns of Ixalan Standard with this one of these tournament results. This was done online. And I found this one of the top decks. It's called this one as Azorius Aggro by Medvedev. This is the username that played this deck. And this looking to be like a potential out of a typical non-tribal. Unlike before that we have a tribal soldiers in blue-white for the standard format. But this time we take a look on some of the new cards here that we can use. And most particularly are coming from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan set. So we're going to do a quick rundown of this build. So we have 4 artifacts, basically the vehicles. So we have 8 enchantments, we have 14 creatures, 5 instants, and 3 Planeswalker. Of course, the Wandering Emperor is probably a good choice for this kind of deck archetype. 26 lands and 15 in the sideboard. So we're going to start off with our creature choices. So we have first here more of the new cards. This is the uncommon Spyglass Siren. So this is just a 1-cost 1/1 flyer, but with its ability that gets you to enter the battlefield, they will create a map token. So these map tokens are particularly very important in having to do some card advantage as well as getting your creatures potential counters. So with this map token, you get to pay 1, tap, sacrifice this one, target creature control explores. So using the Explore ability, if the revealed card is a land, you will put it in your hand. If it's a non-land, you may be able to place it into the graveyard or retain it from top of the library, and then place a person counter on a creature you control. So this one would be used later on, not only just a token early on, but just a way to bump off your creature or do any card advantage whatsoever. So this one, so having this is we have 4 copies. Next also is 2 copies of the Warden of the Inner Sky. This is just looking to be like a 1 mana cost 1/2 human soldier, but its ability that as long as it has 3 or more counters on it, it will gain additional ability of flying and vigilance. And that is also this ability that top 3 untap artifacts and or creatures you control, you can put a sun counter on the Warden of the Inner Sky and you can scry 1. The only drawback is that you would need to activate only sorcery, but in this way that this would be about an aggro deck. I think there are many ways that you can just basically tap your creatures without losing any value at that time. But the important function is that you can be able to place a counter on Warden of the Inner Sky and scry 1. And the bonus also is that putting also counters of this from your Explorer, such as this produced by the map token, can also get you to have this one bigger and going with this ability of 3 or more counters bonus ability. In that, we have our next 2-drop, Denic P Apprentice. So this is like a default for the blue-white deck, which is not only a soldier but also having this ability that can protect your graveyards, and of course the disturb ability later on that can have this one as a Denic P Apparition. So the apparition ability would have this one that whenever 1 or more creature cards are put in the graveyard from anywhere, you can be able to investigate. So investigate is based in clue token, but only triggers once each turn, and also those tokens can then be used to be able to pump up Warden of the Inner Sky by tapping them at your setup. So in any way, we have basically a lot of shenanigans in this deck build that can be used to your card advantage and can also gain you board advantage as well. So next also we have a copy of this is Dust Legion Duelist. This is 2-cost 2/2 vigilance. Whenever 1 or more person counters are placed on Dust Legion Duelist, you will draw a card. You only will trigger it only once each turn. So I have various ways to put counters on this, one of which is the Explore ability. So having this one also would get you a bonus of card draw, and this one would also have you to get the crew Explore ability trigger. So that with this one copy, we also have a copy of Malcolm Alluring Scoundrel. So this is the showcase version. Let me look at the regular version so we can read the full ability. Whenever Malcolm Alluring Scoundrel deals combat damage to a player, put a chorus counter on it, then draw a card and then discard a card. If there are 4 or more chorus counters on Malcolm, you may cast the discarded card without paying its mana cost. So that would be able to putting the chorus counters. The only good ability here is that he is also a flyer and can be cast at any time. So flying would also mean that you would evade most of the blockers, and would also mean that you can do this trigger by dealing combat damage to a player and placing a chorus counter on it. So that also with that we have 3 copies of Kitesail Larcenist. This is another 3-drop but also a flyer with Ward 1. It is a human pirate that enters the battlefield for each player. choose up to one other target artifact or creature that player controls, and then as long as Kite's alertness remains in the battlefield, the chosen permanents become treasure artifacts. So they will become treasure, and those would be able to have this ability that tap sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana beginning color, and lose all other abilities. So this is more of a type of ability kind of ability for any relevant creatures your opponents control, as well as you would also have your extra artifacts become creatures and become treasures by this setup. You can choose up to one other target artifact creature the players control, so which what means that an artifact or creature your opponent controls, and also your creature or artifact that you control. So that is for your 14 creatures. One artifact here that would be able to highlight because of its ability that goes with putting ++ counters is Subterranean Schooner. This is 2 cost mana 3/4 vehicle that can be crewed for only 1. So it's very cheap well to crew this vehicle that whenever it attacks target creature that crewed this turn explore. So another way to gain advantage of it, the test your cardo and putting ++ counters is this card. The only drawback here is that it does not have the flying, so it can be really relevant that can be blocked by bigger creatures in the late game. But overall, it can still become a good early 2-drop here with this deck, because it can basically curve out well and having also a good threat that can only be crewed for 1. So that is for your artifact. For enchantments, so we have a few notables, and basically I think would be the default card to use in this deck. We have 4 copies of Wedding Announcement that can provide human creature tokens and also card advantage, and later on become an unantim effect. Then we have 4 copies of Vulture Brutality that can also create 2/2 white creature token Vigilance, and also a hard cast later on can place ++ counter on each creature you control and then untap those creatures. Now for your instance, we have several spot removals and enchantment removals in the form of Destroy Evil, 2 copies, and hard counters or semi-hard counters with Make Disappear, that's 2 copies, and a copy of Soul Partition that can also remove or exile target non-permanent and have them tax later on by adding additional 2 more to cast for that specific card. Now for the Wandering Emperor, as mentioned, you have a lot of ways to deal advantage on this by casting it for the first time at any time, and the first time it enters the battlefield, activating one of her loyalty abilities at any time that you can cast an instant. So adding ++ counters that gains first strike, creating a blocker in the form of 2/2 white samurai creature tokens, and exiling target top creature, and you gain 2 life. So at any given moment or scenario, I'm pretty sure Wandering Emperor would be really a good help on this deck in the mid game up to the late game. And for the land choices here, for the 26 lands, so we have several ouch lands here with the Dakar Waste, check lands, Deserted Beach, you can do for the channel land utility, several islands, Amirex, Otawara again for channel land for blue, plains, Restless Anchorage as the man land for this deck, become a 2/3 white and blue bird creature with flying, and it can also create a map token, and 4 copies of Seacom Coast to wrap up the 26 lands setup. Now for a quick random sideboard, I think this would go specific with any matchup. So for example, we have Elspeth's Might that can deal with other aggro decks, and also particularly mono red, and it could deal 3 damage to target attacking blocking creature, and then they would be exiled. That's 2 copies. We also have additional Destroy Evil for more of the, maybe for the Dinosaurs deck, because they have mostly have power or toughness of 4 or greater. We have 2 copies of Disinfo Stroke against mid-range, particularly ramp or Atraxa ramp decks. We have 3 copies of Invasion of Bukubakan for the control, and also for the ramp decks that can be checked of your hand to have those relevant land card exiled and being taxed by additional 2. 2 copies of Negate also for the control decks, and also for other kind of mid-range deck that relies on non-creature spells. A copy of Knockout Blow for the mono red setup, because it can only cost 1 for targeting a red creature. This would deal 4 damage to the attacking black creature, and you gain 2 life. Next is Lord of the Third Path. So this is also a 3-drop creature that will also have this ability to destroy artifact or enchantments, and at instance that you would need to draw a card, and you can have this one also that of the ability. And last but not the least, I think are still a Werewolf Bodyguard for instant exile effect by exiling target non-creature until Werewolf's Bodyguard is the battlefield, and 2 copies of Boonbigger but Valkyrie that goes in the mid game that can also get you to back up by also applying Flying First Strike and Lifelink to another creature you control, or just basically having this one as a 5/5 with this certain ability. And for last, for your mana curve, it's surprisingly low with 2.56. There are basically a lot of 2 drops and 3 mana value in the deck, but can also go with the long game with this setup of the Planeswalkers, of course, with this also other creatures that can be very useful in that setup, as well as this certain enchantments. Core distribution would go mostly with white with 31, and blue is 17, while white producers is 24 and blue is 23. And we have a lot of tokens that we can use for this deck. So we have Clue token, Human token, Knight token, Map token. This is the basic map for the Explorer. Protection Might from Mirex, and Samurai token from the Wandering Emperor. So I guess that's pretty much it for this deck for Azorius Aggro, which can be a good suggestion for if you want to try some new interesting builds for Lost Caverns of Ixalan Standard. I suggest you can go with this build, and particularly you can still adjust some of these sideboard choices. Maybe having more solid counter spells instead of conditional, disdainful, stroke cards, and also with negate. So I guess that's pretty much it for this deck for LCI Standard. Be sure to like and subscribe so we can have more of this kind of tournament deck highlights, and as we observe in the standard Pioneer format, and maybe even for Pauper and Modern, as Lost Caverns of Ixalan enters these formats, and we can have some new interesting deck builds to feature on this channel. Thank you guys for checking in on this one, and see you on the next video.